So the topic I'm speaking on, so we heard some wonderful conversations on different insulin. The times for insulin are also getting exciting, and let's hear about let's clear the air around inhaled insulin. I am contracted by Cipla for this conversation. So let's go through this agenda about insulin, a century-old wonder, and where we are heading towards the inhaled insulin. So insulin, the evolution has been tremendous. You've moved from animal to human to the DNA technology, which actually changed the scenario with wider availability of human insulins. And then, of course, we've moved to creating more designer and analog insulins. The pharmacokinetic properties have also changed. We heard conversations on the newer and ultra-fast acting prandial insulins. And of course, the device has changed from the reusable syringes to the disposable ones, and currently the pumps and the AID systems. But one thing which has remained constant throughout our effort for insulin is the fact that it's been all injectable so far. And hence the search for either an oral or an inhaled, a non-injectable insulin formulation has been driving the search of scientists in this field. Inhaled insulin itself, the journey has been pretty interesting. The concept of inhaled insulin was first investigated almost 100 years back. Of course, nothing happened back then. In 71, Wigley and colleagues administered some aerosolized insulin via a nebulizer to rabbits. That was the first kind of successful experiment. In 2006, the US FDA approved Exubera, which was the inhaled insulin developed by Pfizer. We were going to get our hands onto it in India. There were a couple of meetings which happened around it, but unfortunately before we could get it for use, it was called off for logistics and cost reasons out of the US market. Pfizer withdrew that in 2007. Afrezza, which is developed by Mankind Corporation, which is a company, a pharma based out of the US, it's not your Mankind in India. US FDA approved the Afrezza inhaled insulin, which is developed by Mankind. In 2018, Cipla collaborated with them, largely because of its presence in the inhalational segment for respiratory disease that Cipla does. They thought that they were natural partners to eventually develop more affordable inhalational insulin. And then Cipla received the approval in 2024 in India, and we shall have this product in our hands in about 2 months' time. So what is Afrezza? It's a technosphere insulin. It's the only inhaled insulin available for use. It's a rapid-acting inhaled insulin indicated to improve glycemic control in adult patients with diabetes, both type 1 and type 2, but the approval right now is only for adult patients. Formulated using technosphere technology, the insulin particles are adsorbed onto carrier particles. So there are two particles which are used to make this technosphere insulin, the FDKP, which is your fumarate diketopiperazine, which is actually an excipient. It's a carrier, which is what is responsible for getting this insulin, this powder, into the lungs and getting it to get dispersed from the lungs into the system. And the other one is the polysorbate 8T, which is more like a surfactant which is used for this. So it's the FDKP and polysorbate which are responsible for taking the insulin in the inhalational form, dispersing into the lungs and then getting into the systemic circulation. You have pre-filled single-use cartridges which will be available as 4, 8 and 12 units. Of course, you will not have a single unit titration. It's not 7, 8, 9, 10. It is 4, 8, 12. But because the absorption from the inhalational route is not as high as your conventional injections, each single unit difference doesn't matter here. So if somebody is going to require, let's say 11 units of insulin or 10 units, you may end up giving them 12 units. And it will not matter that extra 1 or 2 units is not going to lead to hypoglycemia, and which is what has been seen in the studies. So this is the technosphere technology, as I said. The technosphere microparticles, FDKP, along with regular human insulin, is what results in Afrezza. And as it's stored in a lower pH, but as it comes in contact with the near neutral pH in the lung, it leads to rapidly dissolving these particles and its dispersion in the lung and then into the systemic circulation. So FDKP is a carrier, as mentioned, leads to inhalation of T1. T1 refers to the technosphere insulin here. You breathe in, the particles land deep in the lung alveoli. There's rapid dissolution and release of insulin. Moist and pH neutral environment of lung surface dissolves the particles, releasing insulin into the blood. The FDKP enters the bloodstream. It's an inert substance, so it gets excreted unchanged in the urine and has no side effects or problems in the body on its own. What's the evidence for the same? So let's look at its data over the years. So this is Technosphere insulin pharmacological profile, where you're seeing its pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic profile, and you can see that Technosphere insulin here is demonstrating quicker onset versus other rapid-acting analogs. So the best that we have today are your rapid-acting analogs, but this works faster, and you can appreciate both in the pharmacodynamic and the pharmacokinetic profile, it's faster acting and faster coming down to base. So this is something which has been lacking. We've not been able to target the postprandial that well. We still struggle, but this is probably going to do the job for us. And you can see that it's closer to the endogenous insulin in healthy humans. When you look at the time to measurable effect, the normal is about 10 minutes. Our best insulin so far would be about 17 to 30 minutes. Afrezza is doing it in approximately 12 minutes. Time to peak effect is around 45 minutes. Time for the effect to return to baseline is in fact faster at about 180 minutes. What about its efficacy data? Now this is the clinical efficacy in type 2 patients, where there was significant A1C reduction when added in type 2 patients uncontrolled on oral drugs. So you have you see the reduction of 0.82 in the Technosphere insulin, and then you're looking at the comparison with placebo here, which is where it is 0.42. So on top of the oral drugs, one arm is given placebo, one arm is given the actual drug, and you're getting a 0.4% extra reduction in the postprandial, largely due to the postprandial excursions. In terms of hypoglycemia, some higher hypoglycemia seen, of course, in the insulin arm as compared to placebo, but not found to be clinically significant. Importantly, you're looking at the data in type 1. So, of course, in type 1, you will have an active comparator. You can't have placebo as a comparator. It wouldn't be ethical. And which is where in the type 1 data, this was compared with aspart, a rapid-acting insulin analog, as we know. And you see a 0.21 reduction in the Technosphere insulin and a 0.4 in the aspart arm, which led to its primary target of meeting non-inferiority, which stands at 0.4. So a difference was 0.19 between the two arms, but what Technosphere insulin or Afrezza had to prove was non-inferiority to any of your existing therapies, which was aspart in this case. Hypoglycemia slightly lesser in the Afrezza arm. Both regular hypoglycemia and severe hypoglycemia seem to be lesser for Afrezza as compared to aspart. The data also is now looking at other metrics, which is looking at the CGM related parameters, and we can again appreciate the time in range achieved for the Afrezza arm to be much higher than the aspart arm, and you're looking at much lesser, of course, time above range. So your TIR metrics also improving due to the effects of Afrezza as compared to aspart. Largely, of course, we will see the role predominant of this insulin on the postprandial. You will have indirect effects on the fasting, but largely on the postprandial. Again, importantly, getting to its safety, which does remain a question in all our minds. The most common adverse events that you're going to see with it is cough, which is seen in 25% in the Afrezza arm. Some throat pain or irritation, about 4.4% with Afrezza, headache in 3%, and then of course you're seeing the comparator in terms of placebo, what's the difference between Afrezza and the other one. So largely it's going to be cough. So cough is something we'll have to look out for. Fortunately, for Afrezza, in their studies, including the Indian phase 3 study, which was given to the regulators, and our center was a part of that, we did not have dropouts because of cough. There was cough seen in patients, but no dropouts due to cough in most of the trials. This is the cough with Technosphere insulin. This is a pooled safety population, which is largely reported cough in about 27% of patients on Afrezza versus 5.2 in any of the comparators. 94% of the cough episodes were characterized by intermittent or single defined episodes. Generally mild, dry-natured cough occurred within 10 minutes of the inhalation, was transient and declined with continued use. So this is important because once we get the product in our hands for use, this is what you will also counsel your patients what to expect starting this insulin. Cough was the most common reason for discontinuation from clinical trials, though I said we didn't have large numbers for discontinuation. 2.8% patients treated with Afrezza discontinued therapy because of cough in the trials. Now, you're looking at the pulmonary safety data. So you will be measuring the FEV1 when you start this drug. All groups had small decline from baseline in mean FE1. The difference was resolved by the follow-up visit. So once you stop the drug, so do expect, like today we talk even about the use of Finrenon or SGLT2 inhibitors, and you do expect a little drop in eGFR initially. And so with this, also keep in mind that the FEV1 will drop a bit, but the moment you stop the drug, it comes up. The larger cutoff is if the FEV1 drops by 20%, that in those patients you have to stop. So measuring FEV1 at the beginning and then 6 monthly and yearly intervals is what is going to be recommended. This is the lung safety data for Afrezza, which has been evaluated over a 2-year period, and as you can see, you're looking at the Technosphere insulin drop, initial drop in FEV1, but then being sustained, so there's no continuous decline in FEV1. Also, when you look at the complete data for FE1 in the phase 3 trials, well, 1 out of 3 individuals had a small FE1 decline 0 to 5%. So you can see that at the center of those who had the change about 5%, a smaller percentage have had issues relating to 10 to 15% reductions in FEV1. So Technosphere insulin and special population, well, important, no specific data on its use in individuals with renal impairment, so don't jump in there. Limited available data with Technosphere use in pregnant women, so not to be used. No overall difference in effectiveness has been observed patients who are in the elderly age group, so that's probably an area which is still safe to use. No specific data in individuals with hepatic impairment. Frequent glucose monitoring and glucose monitoring in a lower dosage may be necessary. The same way you use any other insulin in hepatic, you may use that there. There are no data on the presence of Technosphere in human milk, the effects on breast fill. So again, in lactation, not to be used currently till you have more data, and not been approved in pediatric patients. You can use in type 1 patients or type 2, but those who are adult above the age of 18. Quickly, back to the basics, dosing and strengths. Route of administration is oral inhalational. So when we say oral inhalational, it's this device which has the cartridge, and you're going to be opening it, putting in the respective cartridge, which is color coded. So you'll have different color codes. This is the placebo code, but otherwise you can see the blue, green and orange there. 4, 8 and 12 units is what you will get. So if somebody needs to take 20 units of rapid acting insulin at breakfast, they will do a 12 plus 8. So they'll have to first take a 12 and then an 8. So you're loading it on and then you're removing the cover, and is how you will be asking them to take it. So one little drag onto this inhalational thing, and the rest is being done by the Technosphere technology. Of course, this is contraindicated in people who are smokers or any history of smoking within the last 6 months. And as I said, a baseline FEV1 has to be more than 70%. So key considerations, the bioavailability is 30 to 40% compared to injectable insulin. Dose labeled in each cartridge indicates the bioavailable insulin when administered, 4, 8 or 12. Pivotal clinical studies in type 1 patients already on rapid acting insulin and switch post randomization to Technosphere who followed the dosing recommendations demonstrated lesser hypoglycemia. So some improvement in reduction in hypoglycemia expected there. The key steps, this is all those who want to see it, probably I think Cipla will have it at the stall. You can walk in there and actually see some of these samples. So to remove the initial cartridge, loading it on, and then doing the oral inhalational part to get the benefit of the drug. So let me again wind up by reminding that its indication, it's a rapid acting inhaled insulin indicated to improve glycemic control in adults with diabetes. Limitations in patients with type 1 must use along with a long-acting insulin. So without your long-acting, this is not going to work, and the patient may take it 3, 4 or even 5 times a day with different meals. Not recommended for treatment of emergencies like DK, not recommended in patients who smoke. Your chronic lung diseases, COPD, all are going to be contraindications for its use. During episodes of hypoglycemia, of course, you will not use it, and any known hypersensitivity to insulin. So things to remember, before initiating, it's necessary to perform a detailed medical history, physical examination, and assess the FEV1. FEV1 should be more than equal to 70% of the predicted value. All of us soon will learn how to do this, and they have portable devices which will be available at certain clinics to begin with. the better users of this product will get that device to assess in patients and give it to them. In patients taking the Technosphere, if everyone declines by more than 20%, please stop this drug immediately for that. So it's something which seems promising. It's being used in the US for last few years. India is amongst those few countries which is going to be able to get it, so we are lucky in that sense. But with every new product also comes the responsibility on physicians where not to use it and what to be aware of in terms of its side effects. So great product, but let's watch out for how we use it in our clinical world. So it's the only inhaled insulin. Most common adverse reactions would be hypo, cough, throat pain or irritation, and it's been approved by the Indian CDSCO for adult individuals with diabetes mellitus. Banshi asked us to show some history, and I thought I won't go way back. This is the Exubra inhaled insulin from Pfizer, which was launched. And this is what we have now. So you can see how technology has progressed from that large device to this, something which we all are going to get for our patients coming up. With that, let me end and give it on to the video that they have about this product.
Now let's go through the instructions to properly inhale Afrezza, which will look like this. I'll break the inhalation down into 4 steps and walk through each one in detail. Step 1, select the cartridge. Because Afrezza enters the bloodstream in less than a minute and starts controlling blood sugar in about 12 minutes, you'll take Afrezza right before you begin eating. Once you open one of the foil packages, you'll find 2 blister cards, perforated to tear off into small strips of 3 insulin cartridges. You'll first get your cartridge out of the strip by pushing the rounded plastic so that the cartridge breaks through the foil. Check the color and number on your foil strip or cartridges to ensure the correct dosage is selected. Step 2, load the cartridge. After taking the inhaler out of its plastic wrapper, you'll notice that there are 2 parts of the inhaler. On the bottom, there is a short, flat, broad purple base that will let you set the inhaler flat on the table if needed. On the top, there is a thin white mouthpiece that extends out longer than the base with a purple removable mouthpiece cover. You can remember that the white part of the inhaler goes up towards the clouds. You'll want to do the purple pinch to hold the base of the inhaler level while lifting the mouthpiece up to a vertical position. This will open the inhaler. You should see or feel a cavity inside, which is where the cartridge will fit just like a puzzle piece. You'll hold the cartridge with the white cup down and place it in the inhaler so the pointed end lines up with the pointed end in the inhaler. Next, we'll close the top part of the inhaler back down. You may feel or hear a snap. That snap was the insulin cup sliding into position, becoming like a salt shaker. It's important that after this step, to not turn your inhaler upside down, shake it, put it in your pocket, or drop it, as that could lead to a loss of powder. So you'll want to do this step right before you're ready to inhale. Remember to keep the inhaler level once loaded. Step 3, inhale Afrezza. Now it's time to inhale. Take off the purple mouthpiece cover by pulling the very thin tab towards you. Before bringing your inhaler to your mouth, exhale to get rid of the air that's already in your lungs. Then place the mouthpiece in your mouth with the inhaler tilted down towards your chin. Form a seal with your lips around the mouthpiece. Take a deep breath, approximately 3 seconds, like you would do a yoga breath or when your doctor is checking your breathing with a stethoscope. Once you've inhaled, hold your breath for a couple of seconds or as long as it's comfortable, before resuming your normal breathing. Step 4, remove the cartridge. Once you're done, open the inhaler, remove the used cartridge, and throw it away in regular household trash.
Thank you. So there are any questions, and as the time permits, happy to take them.
Thank you.